Okay, kitty pies, it's August 17th, 2024, and this is the 60 bug restoration. Thought I'd go over today a little information on blocking and sand and primer and certain blocks that are out there. We're fortunate in this time of life or years in bodywork that a lot of companies are making really good stuff, good products, especially the blocks. There are so many different blocks out there, and I'll go over what ones you really need for a Volkswagen. But this is the spray polyester that goes over the bodywork. I did a epoxy primer first, bodywork over that, and then to smooth everything together, I put spray poly. I'll go over that in a little bit. But on these Volkswagens here, these roofs are kind of tricky. Let me get up here and show you. So you could see on these Volkswagens, I thought it was pretty straight, but once I started blocking on it, I realized that Volkswagen has some factory, I call them whoop-de-doos, and the stampings and the sheet metal, especially on the roofs. Right here, it was a little, this whole front panel was wavy here. Okay, that's to be expected. And then right in this area here, right behind it, was low. This area was low and high, and then going towards that back there, I'll show you. That was all highs and lows. Now, especially in this whole back area, once again, like the front, was low. So I wanted this all to smooth in. So you see here, I used the Evercoat Optics. It sprays pink, sands gray. It's got a built-in guide coat. I put on 3 coats on this roof because it's basically, I got my bodywork where I thought it was good. You're not going to be perfect with the bodywork, but this will make your bodywork perfect. I put 3 coats on there, 18 to 20 mils thick it is. Now, that's a lot of material. So what I want to do is you want to take most of that off. So you can see here, right here, I'm starting to see through to the primer underneath, the epoxy primer. I know that I'm done sanding here, and there's no low spots here. So down around the windows here, you see it was a little low here, but I filled it all in with that high build. Okay, so now it's nice and straight. You see here, I still got to work this line here a little bit, but I'll show you how I do that in a little bit. Now, if you see here, when I'm sanding here, you can see here I'm low, okay? I know that I'll take that out with this high build because I just know, because by sanding it, you get a feel for it. Now here is the blocks I'm sanding the roof with. These 2 blocks here. This one basically is just a rubber block with a flat surface. Now on the roof here, you want to go with a contoured block. These used to be made by, used to be sold by Eastwood. These are a foam block with a metal plate on the bottom. So it's nice and sturdy in the bottom. That's what you want. And you want to use the stick it because you don't want your surface here to give while you're sanding. You want to keep this straight. But yet on the roof like this, I want it to be flexible and bend towards the contour of the roof. Now naturally you want to use the longest block possible. That way you can blend all your highs and lows a lot better in when you're sanding. Now these are linear blocks. These are really good. There's 3 different firmnesses on these. Those are really good, especially for the side here. They worked out good. This is the smaller version of that one that's up on the roof there. See the rods that are in there? Basically, you could pull those rods out. I pulled all 3 of them out for that block there because I wanted it to be more flexible. But when you put the rods in, it makes it really hard to flex. It keeps it nice and straight. Or you could pull out 2 rods to make it more flexible. You could pull out only 1 rod if you want. So it keeps your contour constant while you're sanding. And also when you're sanding a area like this, you don't want to sand real hard. You want to have an even pressure on your block, whole length if you can. And just you want to follow that contour of that panel. Now sanding this high build poly is a really pain. It's really hard to sand. It takes forever. But take your time and you'll get your panel nice and super straight. Now I sand in 120 grit. 120 is my favorite grit of all time. But after I get my panel straight, like to this point here, where I'm seeing through it, I'm gonna go over it with 180, 220, and then 320. And then I'll take Prepsol, wipe it all down, and check for my straightness on the panel. And then I know I got it good. But I can tell you just by looking at it, that's gonna be a really straight panel. Also, these are new blocks. These are foam blocks. These are good, but they give on the surface too much here. And that'll fill it, that'll ride in that any low spot you might have, and you might be fooling yourself. Whereas these blocks here have a hard surface here. They don't give. You want to use the stick it on it. This block here, rubber block, very hard here. It does give a little bit, but if you use even pressure, it'll stand good. And once again, these blocks here have that metal there, so they're not going to give it all, but yet they will bend. Okay, let me show you here. See how it bends? Can't do it holding the camera, but it'll contours to that roof better. So it takes a while. This roof's probably going to take me 4 or 5 hours to block out the way I want it. Right now, what you're seeing here, I got about a good hour in blocking this. Just taking my time. It's really hot out. It's really kind of a pain. What's going to take the time is dialing in this right here. And on Volkswagen, these all had whoop-de-doos in here, so I wanted to take all those out. That's going to be hard to do. Now, how am I going to get in here? I'll show you what I do with that. It's a trick from an old body man that I learned years ago. He takes a paint stick, and he'll take the stick it, and he'll bend it around this paint stick, okay? And then you can get this paint stick, and this paint stick will flex, okay? And I'll sand like this all the way down in here and get all this safe, and I'll dial in that gap right there. And I might use this block for a little bit, but these blocks are a little too big for that area there. So paint stick would stick it, and you could fine sand in all those tight to get areas, especially in this area where it's crowned. It's got to be straight this way, and it's got to be straight lengthwise. And you want to get this line here looking really good, and you want to take out all these little, I call them factory, where they crimp the roof. You want to take them all out so it'll look good in final paint. Very cool trip. So every surface is going to use a different block. Now the sides of these are not totally flat. These are kind of hard because they got to contour this way and they got to contour that way. So you don't want to take it out or it won't look natural. I blocked panel to panel here for my gaps this way and inside, up and down. That way when you look down the side of it, it'll look like a modern car, because a lot of Volkswagens are out or in here in the door where they adjusted it. This one, hopefully, the way I did it, I blocked with the door on to the quarter panel. That way it's laser straight in this area. There's my buddy there. He's helping me out. Anyways, just some quick tips on blocking. These roofs are a lot of work, a lot of sanding. You got a lot of contours on them. You got a lot of flat spots in these roofs, even though you don't see it from some colors. I know I'm going with the Indian red. It's going to be a darker color, so you're going to see more of the imperfections or waves in a panel. So I want to take all that guesswork out. So if you look here, see how that sprays kind of like gator skin almost. That's because it's so thick. You want to use a 2.0 tip on your gun. Once you mix it, you got a 45-minute pot life in that cup or it gets hard. So it's basically like spray on body filler, but what it does is it evens out. It'll coat your whole panel. That way when you go to sand it, everything blends in together and it sands real nice. Now just before it got hard, after I sprayed it, I peeled away this here, and then what I'll do is I'll sand that lip off, blend it into that epoxy primer there. And the same thing back here. See how I tape this off? First of all, I don't want dust going inside those vents. And also, I didn't want this high build going in there. So I taped it off. I'll blend this in. And then my final prime, I'll probably either prime up to these here. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, or I might prime into there and sand everything all at once. I'll take this lip off here. I want to keep my drain holes in my windows. So take your time. You're almost done with your project when you're at this stage. You want to fine tune any little details. Like I knew in here, I had some rough areas in here. I knew the high build will take that out, so I'm going to sand that, so when you open up that engine, it'll look really nice in this area here. I'll seam seal this gap here nice. So just some tips on the blocking. It's a lot of work. I got a lot of hours of blocking on this car, because these Volkswagens are hard. Everything's round on these things. It's almost like trying to block a bowling ball. But if you take your time, you can do it. Now the roof is probably the hardest area to block. The second hardest area is that hood. That hood was really hard to block, especially to get it right and straight. So just take your time on those areas. And if I had to guess, I bet you I got easy over 100 hours of blocking on this car, especially in the wheelhouses here, taking out any imperfections. I know there's guys online that say, yeah, I could do that in a couple hours and have it done. Well, that's fine, but I'm taking my time. I wanted the jams looking good. I want all my jams down in the corners there looking good. So I want all this in here looking good. So this is what makes a really good looking paint job. There's a lot of work beforehand, but in the end, it'll be well worth it. Okay, kitty pies. Oh, another thing. Blocking is so monotonous, especially on a hot day. I got my Bluetooth headphones. I usually listen to Sirius XM. I like 70s or some country music days. It all depends on what day it is. Right now I'm listening to 70s on 7. Takes my mind away from the monotonous back and forth of sanding and all the dust and dirt. You get done here, you go home, take a shower, and you'll see all that stuff going down the drain. So it's dirty, but I've been doing it my whole life. I kind of still like it. Okay, kitty pies.